In 2017, we were excited to win a trip for two to New York. This gave us the opportunity to have a stopover in San Francisco to meet up with our friends Frank and Jean, who live in Monterey. They kindly offered to show us around San Francisco, Yosemite National Park and Monterey over the next 2 weeks. First up was a visit to Fisherman's Wharf and explore the waterfront, taking in a seafood lunch. We walked to the Hyde Street terminal to catch the famous cable car. I hung out the side to get great shots of the city as we flew up the hill at great speed. What fun! We travelled up and over Hyde Street to the Theatre District, where we had a look around before having afternoon tea at the Palace Hotel. Then it was on to Chinatown, and before we knew it, it was getting dark. So we headed back to the car and across the Golden Gate Bridge to stay the night with Frank's daughter's family. The next day was my birthday, and what better way to spend it than walk over the Golden Gate Bridge. It was a great sight with the fog rolling in over the headland and under the bridge. The fog is caused by hot inland air rising and being replaced by the cooler sea air. It made the bridge feel alive, as though it was breathing. Being a civil engineer before becoming a videographer, I was fascinated by the marvel of the bridge spanning a 1.6 kilometre gap. When it was opened in 1937, it was the longest and tallest suspension bridge in the world, and it was very special to experience it firsthand. On the southern side, Frank and Jean picked us up and we drove a short way along Lincoln Boulevard to get more views of the bridge. After I had nearly filled up a memory card with shots, I relented to leave the bridge, and we visited the Legion of Honor Museum, full of great art and providing a great spot for lunch. Next on the list was the famous curvy Lombard Street. Great fun joining the procession down the steep hill. Our last stop was a stroll around the Palace of Fine Arts. The next morning, we were off to Yosemite National Park, a 4-hour drive. That's a bridge and a half.
Most Americans
It was great to experience some Californian highway driving. Very well behaved drivers from what we experienced.
Well, the salad bowl.
We arrived soon after lunch, and on the Big Oak Flat approach road, we could see Half Dome and the Bridal Veil Falls in the distance. There had been plenty of rain prior to our arrival, so streams were running with high flows. We stopped at Tamarack Creek to stretch our legs and get up close to the roaring water, excited at what lay ahead. Further in, we stopped to view Bridal Veil Fall. Just as well I had my GoPro, as the waterfall mist was everywhere. After the falls, we backtracked up to the tunnel lookout to get awesome views of Yosemite Valley with El Capitan, Bridal Veil Fall and beyond. It felt almost too grand to take in. The screensaver I had spent all those years looking at was right in front of me. I had to use the wide-angle lens to capture it all. Back down the road we had views of Yosemite Falls. This is where I was mesmerised. I couldn't quite take in the spectacular size of the valley, the meadows, the towering rock faces, and the stupendous falls. It was mind-boggling. It was like a New Zealand landscape on steroids, with a soft meadow thrown in. Thoughts of, this is what heaven must look like, came to mind. As it was high season for park visits, we had to stay in tents for the night, complete with outside safe for food to keep bears from wanting to get into the tents. The next day we had a look inside the Awani Hotel, a stone exterior to fit in with the surroundings. This is where we had hoped to stay. Well, maybe next time. We went on a beautiful walk along the Merced River, taking in the gorgeous surroundings.
Aboard these hills with the sun on my skin, it's beautiful.
After lunch we headed up to Glacier Point.
Go now, the river runs cold. It's beautiful.
Where we got an awesome view out to Half Dome, Nevada Falls,
I'm home. Through where I flow, far away, I'm blessed and full.
and then Yosemite Falls. From this height you could see the vast catchment area that fed the falls.
You might find me lost in these fields of home.
Then it was back through the tunnel and on off across beautiful country views to Monterey.
Sorry to go into with the uploading. Thanks again, and Joe, stay Monterey.
It was the weekly farmers market, so after a look around the waterfront, we strolled through to look at the fresh produce on display. On the next morning, we went for a short walk along the coast, close to where we were staying. With a rest day for Frank and Jean, it saw us take off into Monterey Bay Aquarium, which by all accounts was a must visit. Not wrong there, it was awesome, and I would also say a must see. Afterwards, we headed to the Wharf for a seafood lunch. The next day we set off on our coastal trip to Big Sur, across the famous Bixby Creek Bridge, one of the most photographed bridges in California. I'd seen it in so many movies, so it was great to get out and get my own shots. After Carmel, we visited Point Lobos State Natural Reserve, where Frank had played a part in the ecological restoration efforts. On the way back, we couldn't resist a visit to Pebble Beach Golf Course and drinks on the 19th hole. Alas, our wonderful California diversion was over, and we drove back to San Francisco for one last night, staying with another of Frank's daughters, before flying on to New York.